So JBL Flip 6 took the JBL fanboy world by storm because it's Party Boost. Party Boost is the same as we had on the JBL Flip 5. Got it on the JBL Flip 6. We can finally, backwards compatible, play a Flip 5 and a Flip 6 together. They have not upgraded to Party Boost ABC like they like to do, so that's good. A bit of consistency from JBL. We then got, oh, I know you love it. You love it when there's a woofer, and you seem to think it's great when JBL go from stereo to mono for some reason. But they went from a mono with a very, very, very fast, what they call racetrack driver, which is oval shaped, and they've added a tweeter.
Hello.
And oh my God, a lot of you think they've added a tweeter, there's no more to do. We have the holy grail of speakers, of course, adding a tweeter. Simply not as simple as that. And my personal opinion is, in these cheap, small speakers, adding a tweeter can often make it worse. Well, because you're adding a cheap tweeter, for starters, it's a budget speaker, and adding a cheap tweeter alone can sound quite harsh. And you've got a problem with the crossover, because making a decent crossover is not that great. Therefore, in my personal opinion, I would have preferred a pair of woofers. I would have liked to have seen exactly what that would have done. But hey ho, a lot of you are very, very excited. You've got a tweeter alongside a woofer. You don't care that it's mono. Your life is now complete. So, if that wasn't enough, they went and added EQ.
Nice.
In the app. We've only waited 24 years for EQ. A lot of others, like Soundcore, who I do not work for, have had it for years, and they have multi-band graphic equalizers. We've got 3 bands. That's better than nothing. It's better than 2 bands and better than 1 band. But hey ho, that doesn't add up to a decent graphic equalizer, but it's a start. They finally started to give us EQ in the app. There isn't a lot of headroom, but there is some headroom, so we all expected them to be JBL, and they're going to play little tricks, and when you push the bass slider up a bit, and actually it's just bringing the mids and the highs down, they're playing games like that. They're not. You've got actual headroom, but not a lot of headroom, but it is a real graphic equalizer. And so, in my first video, I wanted to be a bit cautious, wanted to give you an idea exactly what default would sound like, but I wanted to up the bass a little bit because there is headroom to add the bass. Not everybody loves bass, but I think most of you guys on my channel do like a dollop of bass. I went +1. I'm now looking to get a more, a tuning that works for me personally for a long-term listen. So it's Alan Ross, what does he use as custom EQ? And there's going to be people say, don't give us custom EQ at all, or if you're going to EQ one speaker, EQ them all. And hey ho, I'll come back. As I said, it's my channel. I'll do what I want. This is what I want to do. I started the channel because I wanted to do the testing the way I personally wanted to hear speakers. You've joined me along the way, and I thank you for that. But hey ho, I'm not here to sell speakers. I'm here to give you my opinion on the speakers that I buy and how I listen to them. Here's where I am with the EQ. This is what happens when you start adjusting.
So JBL Flip 6 in default mode. We want to add some bass. We also want to tame some of the highs. And one issue with the highs is there's a considerable peak, especially around 4 kilohertz above the mids. So because of the highs, there's a suck out in the mids. I want to reduce the highs. I want to increase the bass. +2 on the bass, -1 in the treble. That's flattened out lower mids all the way up to the highs. A bit of a roll off as we get to the high end, but that's worth the trade-off to flatten the sound out. You can indeed increase the mids a little bit more, +1 in the app. The problem is it's already a bit harsh. We're trying to tame the harshness. And while that clearly fills out the mids to an extent, we're still left with a bit of a peak at 4 kilohertz. And now the mids is going to start to dominate even over the highs. And I don't think it's worth it overall. So my EQ is going to be +2 bass, -1 treble. If we overlay them, which means we are getting more bass, we're also getting more in the lower mids. And we're also getting that reduction in the highs, especially at that 4 kilohertz peak. So that does help. It may be a bit bass heavy for you, but this is the tuning I'm going with just to show you. If you do go with +1 on the mids, again, that does fill out the mids. It's the blue line going all the way up here. But the mids start to dominate and you're still going to get a harsh sound, in my opinion. So that's where I am with the EQ. My default for my testing now is going to be +2 bass, -1 treble.
I'm going +2. I'm maxing the bass. It's not really bringing in any extra distortion. It is a little bit of free bass. Yes, it's going to make it quite bass heavy. One issue with the speaker is it's different at every volume. is tuned with a lot of mid bass, and it's tuned to give a lot of that bass below 60%. As you go up the volume scale, you're getting less, you're getting a bit more bass, but you're getting less relative bass. By the time you hit 80%, you won't get any bass at all after that. And it'll go on with mids and it'll go on with highs. You'll get a very, very screechy, harsh sound. I'm going +2 to maximize my bass. I'm going -1 to tame the highs a little bit without losing too much clarity. In the real world, of course, those mids, there is a lack of mids. You can push those mids, but me personally, I find it a bit harsh. So from now on, in all my testing, I would be going +2 EQ, -1 on the treble. So probably 20% of you out there will not like my tuning because you don't want a dollop of bass. You don't like the kind of V shape that I'm going for in these small speakers. That's a £120 speaker. My £50 world champions have been previously the Tribit Maxsound Plus. Lovely neutral sound if you don't need heavy bass. Hey, Flip 4 lovers out there, that's a very capable, hi-fi-ish, neutral sounding speaker. But I do prefer a warmer sound. I do prefer bass. I discovered the upgraded version of the Soundcore Boost, and it's stereo. JBL can still be done. Doesn't have tweeters, but it does have dual woofers, clue, and it's a warmer sound. But hey-ho, this is £47 on Amazon UK at the moment. This is £43 on Amazon UK at the moment, and that is 120 quid. Do you see the problem for the Flip 6 here? Is that we've got decent speakers that cost 1/3 the price of the JBL Flip 6. Now, a lot of you are going to say, but look at that logo. I've made jokes about the logo, but it's fantastic. It's a fantastic logo. I mean, they put a serious amount of thought into it, haven't they? Because it glows red only when you turn it like that. They've actually had to sit around and think about how they're going to improve the logo. Why? Because they know visual sell. As a matter of interest, visuals don't only sell on the shelf. Testing shows that if you do speaker testing, and it could be the same sound coming from the speaker, but you change the visuals of the speaker, it will change your perception of the sound. It sounds stupid, you probably don't believe it, but hey, it's true that a look of a speaker can change your perception of that sound. So, £50-ish speakers, £40-ish speakers against a £120 speaker, around 50% volume.
No one else can do it like I do. Ain't nobody that is quite like me. Nobody work as hard and can rhyme like me. They can sing like me. They can try, you'll see. Getting jiggy on the rhythm like I'm Billie Jean. Billy Elliot, how I move. Rest from your head, I ain't breaking sweat through the world in the force. I'm a master of all you which I can like. So let me put the work in. Baby, let me see what I can do. Let me put the work in. If anyone can, I'ma see it. Let me put the work in. I'm the best friend now, I'm not trying to be rude. Let me put the work in. No one else can do it like I do. No one else can do it like I do. No one else can do it like I do. Yeah, so let me put the work in. Here for the long run, I'm just flirting. I'm in love with the game so much it hurts me. Cause I'm the main show, cue the curtains. No one could be with me. No one could be with me. And I say it again, so get it through your brain. No one could be with me. No one else can do it like I do. No one else can do it like I do. So let me just move your way. So let me just save the day. So let me just work my magic. Let me just come and play. So let me just move your way. So let me just save the day. So let me just work my magic. Let me just come and play. Let me put the work in. Baby, let me see what I can do. Let me put the work in. If anyone can, I'ma see it. Let me put the work in. I'm the best friend now, I'm not trying to be rude. Let me put the work in. No one else can do it like I do.
There's something on this table for everybody. We do have to point out there is a difference in power available here. Well, on paper, 30 watts, 24 watts, just 20 watts for a speaker that's putting out significant amount of deep bass. No tweeter, but got deeper bass. Is that a clue to what I've been trying to tell you guys? None of these speakers are crap. Isn't that fantastic? I've got 3 speakers on the table, and I'm not going to say, oh, don't listen to that one. There's something for everybody. These are moderate listening volumes. These are 50% of volumes. We've got decent bass from 2 of these speakers, the Flip 6, the Soundcore Boost. Enough bass that whatever you like in terms of bass, you're going to say, oh, there's enough there for me. For a speaker that size, clue, small speaker. But a lot of you will not like that bass. A lot of you just want a neutral, almost monitor-like speaker. And there is the Maxsound Plus. Cannot compete with bass, but it does something quite different. It gives you a proper neutral. It's not just bass light, it's neutral. It's proper neutral speaker. This is deeper, warmer sounding. This is more upper bass and more, it's a clearer, well, not clearer, that has more clarity. It's sharper, it's more defined. But remember, stereo, mono. So both speakers, I would say, are decent. Well, all 3 speakers are decent at these volumes. I wouldn't argue for taking, if you're a bass lover, for having one of these speakers over. I would say if you're a bass lover, you like upper bass, Flip 6. If you like deep bass, and more of a, it's not going to shake the floor, but it's kind of is that lower level bass. It's a warmer sound. Go for the Boost. But both are a satisfying listen. At 50%, I've already said this is well tuned to be mid bass heavy at low volumes. That's where it excels, and that's where it can match speakers like the Charge 4 in terms of bass, but not in that deeper bass. They've gone for mid bass over upper and deep bass, and it kind of works for that speaker. But we're going to push the volumes a bit more. We're going to go to Alan Ross real world volumes, around 75%. But of course, I'm matching them for volume. So watch for the recorded volume.
I thought that you were worth saving. I had my head above the clouds when we met. I knew one day you would hate me. Now my heart is cold and filled with regret. You thought that you would use me, but love is so confusing. When I fell, you didn't even try to pick me up. You thought I wouldn't leave. How could you be so naive? You chased your heart, ignored the signs painted above. I just wanna be left alone. Just wanna be left alone. I feel it in my bones. Feel it in my bones. My heart is a cyclone. Cyclone.
We're really having to push the Maxsound Plus, 24 watts versus 20 watts, but we're really pushing that a bit more. So still a neutral sound, but 85% volume to match these, around 75%. It's starting to struggle. There isn't a deep bass there, or any bass at all, really. For me, even as neutral as it is, wouldn't be my choice of the three on the table. Whereas at 50%, I could say I could pick up any of them and be happy. At this point, it's down to the Flip 6, it's the Flip 6, and the Soundcore Boost upgraded version. But again, differences. Now, I've mentioned sound changes at every volume. It's tuned to have lots of rounded bass, deep bass, well, mid bass at lower volumes. We're now at higher volumes, and whereas that was less clear, that was more clear at 50%. It's now evening out, so this becomes clearer as you got the volume scale. That becomes less bass heavy as you got the volume scales, which means they're quite close. But the differences are still there. That's more about deep bass, and that's more about mid bass. Upper bass, that's now clearly mono and hard edged. That's clearly warm with a rounder sound, but you're going to get more clarity. You're going to get more definition out the Flip 6. But for me, that's a more satisfying listen because of the bass depth that's still there. But either one of those, it could be your guy or woman. I'm not sexist. And I just think we're getting to the harsh point now of the Flip 6. Bear in mind, a +2 and -1, I've tamed the harshness. But by nature, is it because they've used a cheap tweeter? I don't know, but I would like to have heard it with two very, very fast oval racetrack optimized drivers. At 50%, all three would be my choice. I would be happy with either of them. At 75%, well, personally, I'm more happy with the Soundcore Boost, but it's going to depend on the track. If you listen to warm tracks, Flip 6 will probably be a better match. And if you listen to very bright sounding tracks, the Boost is going to be a better match. So what is the headroom on all these speakers? 100% of volume.
I've been counting down the days to get out. I've been looking for a way from this town. And you're too far away to help me now. So I'm counting down the days to get out. 'Cause I need to learn to forget everything that drags me down. I need to forget everything inside me now. Full speed ahead, far from the end. So I'm full speed ahead. Staring at the sun in my eyes. I've been keeping on the run every night. But you're too far away to see the signs. So I'm staring at the sun till I'm dry. 'Cause I need to learn to forget everything that drags me down. I need to forget everything inside me now. Full speed ahead, far from the end. So I'm full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. Full speed now. Full speed, got the pedal down. Full speed now. Yeah.
Technically, the Maxsound Plus is the loudest by a decibel over the Flip 6, which is a tad louder than the Soundcore Boost. Even in peaks, the Maxsound Plus is still the loudest. It's the loudest, but it cannot hold on to bass, and that's the reason it goes the loudest. 3 decibels down in overall bass on the Flip 6, which is a couple of decibels louder overall bass than the Soundcore Boost. The Soundcore Boost can no longer, when fully pushed, produce the bass that we're getting from the Flip 6. However, there is still a tad of deep bass. At 60 Hz, there's actually a little in it between the Flip 6 and the Soundcore Boost, but the Flip 6 having more mid and upper bass, combined with a bit more in the mids and the highs on the Soundcore Boost now, gives the advantage in overall sound to the Flip 6, but none of them can touch the highs on the Maxsound Plus now, which is very thin and brittle sounding. It's 2 decibels up on the highs of the Flip 6, which already knows a bit screechy. The Soundcore Boost, and 3 decibels stronger in the highs for the Maxsound Plus than on the Soundcore Boost.
It was struggling at 85% volume, and by the time you hit 100% of volume, not for me, thank you, when I've got these alternatives, because very brittle, very bass-light, not a nice sound. You couldn't even say, well, it's neutral, because it's just a hard listen. Whereas we've still got some bass from both of these 2 speakers, but again, those differences I've mentioned before remain, and also 30 watts, 20 watts. There is more power on hand for the Flip 6, and I think it shows, because the Boost is struggling a little bit more now compared to the Flip 6. But I'm going to declare this a draw. Why are you going to do that, Alan? Well, I'm going to tell you, the Boost holds on to a bit more in the mids, and it does hold on to the deep bass, whereas we've still got a bit more bass all round on the Flip 6. But it's a hard-edged listen, whereas that's still a bit more rounded listening. That is still very harsh at maximum volumes, I have to say, even with -1 on the treble. And if you're really going in the EQ, you probably bring that down to -2. But they sound a bit different. I just think that's a better match with the tracks I play and with my ears. But probably it struggles more at maximum volume. So it's going to, again, come down to what you, if indeed you're listening at maximum volumes, maybe you go for the Flip 6. It's got more power in hand, and it's struggling not quite as much, but it's a harsh listen. It's a harsh listen. But then you may be half deaf and not even hear anything over 2 kilohertz. I don't know, and that won't be an issue at all. So, just to quickly go over the specs of all these speakers, all 3 of them can be recommended. But the problem for the Flip 6, as usual, with the JBL, the people who gave you the JBL extremely priced 1, 2, and 3, it's £120. £47-ish, £43 in the UK, normally transfers into dollars. In terms of batteries, 17 watt hours, JBL Flip 6, but 19 watt hours, and only for the 20 watt speakers, kind of on paper, but it's got more bass, so maybe about the same in battery life. All SPC codecs. We've still got 4.2 on my Maxsound Plus, but of course the new ones will come with Bluetooth 5. And it will come with stereo pairing, and that would mean they all do stereo pairing. Of course, up to 148 million speakers you can connect with JBL if you've got the right connection thingy. Party Boost being the connection thingy on there, and they had Connect Plus and they've had Connect before that, and you cannot connect different types of Connect thingies together. Only the Tribit Maxsound Plus comes with an auxiliary. I don't know. You tell me, have they dropped the auxiliary now, being a modern one on their upgraded version? Only the Soundcore, amazingly, you can use this as a power bank, but you can't use the other 2 as a power bank. You can't use the Flip 6 for making phone calls, because we don't give you features. We don't want to give you features, but you can use these for making phone calls. Basically all about the same weight. 550 grams for the Flip 6, 624 grams for the Boost, and 595 grams for the Tribit Maxsound Plus. All rated IPX7, in fact, rated IPX67, the 6 being dustproof for the Flip 6. IPX7 means you can submerge it for 30 minutes in up to 1 meter of water, but if they don't float, you still got a problem, haven't you, if it's more than 1 meter deep. Of these speakers, only the Soundcore Boost will float. Only, of course, the Flip 6 has those tweeters. None of them are really any good for YouTube streaming, which is my test for lip sync issues. Latency, because my cutoff point 80 milliseconds, I'm getting 116 milliseconds Flip 6, 150 milliseconds Boost 2, and 160 milliseconds. Maybe it's better on the newer version. That ain't good. That's a wrap up. What's the takeaway, Al? Because we've skipped right to the end. We're missing out most of the ads, and we're just going to hear the conclusion, which makes the point of a 30-minute video that you spend your life compiling completely a waste of time. However, for those few of you who actually watch all the video and don't skip through, and you, well, so actually this is for the people who have skipped through. What's the takeaway, Al? And it's not fish and chips. It is that the Flip 6 is a decent enough speaker till you start hitting around 75% volume or even less, because it sounds harsh. We don't have tweeters on the Soundcore Boost. You can say, well, yeah, because, and it's not even as clear. But there's enough clarity there for me. You can EQ it in a proper graphic equalizer that you get with Soundcore. You could just bring in the bass down to custom it to your sound will automatically make it sound clearer. We're talking about takeaways. My takeaways, this is my personal favorite on this table, even if they were the same price. But that's 47 quid, that's 120 quid. But what it doesn't have is the form factor. If I'm traveling, I'd probably prefer to travel with the JBL Flip 6, because I can knock it. I'm not going to knock it too heavy now, because I'm not that confident. But it is, I do like the cylindrical knockabout form factor of the JBL 6, which isn't the same. I would not be comfortable dropping that on anything close to a firm surface. So I think it's more travel friendly because of the form factor. But I'd rather listen to Soundcore Boost 2, but it's close, especially at lower volumes where the Flip 6 excels. And the Maxsound Plus is going to, if you don't need bass, you're going to pick up the Maxsound Plus. If you don't need big volumes, and even if you do, you get the modern one, you could have two of them hooked up in stereo and it'd probably sound fantastic. I don't know, I'm waiting to find out. And that's the takeaway, is we've now got a reasonable options, even from JBL. I'm saying it's not overpriced at £120 because it's JBL. You're going to say it's overpriced because look what you can get for less than 50 quid. And I would agree with you, but it's a little bit more going on with the JBL Flip 6. So there's the takeaway. The JBL Flip 6 takes on the £50-ish champions. Well, that's, didn't you say that was a big Asting M4? I do. But in terms of the size of travel-friendly 50-poundish speakers, the Asting M4 is bigger. I think you've got the conclusion by now. I prefer the Boost 6, but you might well like the Flip 6. It's a decent enough speaker for JBL. I thank you for watching.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.